Now it's time to welcome our next guest, Jeff Johnson, the AARP Florida State Director. He's worked with the AARP for 20 years and has been the State Director for the last 10 years. Jeff, it's good to finally meet you after all this time.
Likewise, thanks for having me on the show.
Of course. This is an important topic. So since you see these things firsthand, they get reported to you and so on, tell us, what are some of the major types of scams that you see going on today, especially those that target your membership?
Sure. And what I would say is that they fall into three categories. So one are straight up money scams. Either you've won the lottery, or you've won a sweepstakes, or you have debt that they want to collect, or your credit card company calls to try to get your credit card information. You also see some investment scams on that side too. But then beyond that, it's everything under the sun. So we have romance scams, people who are 50 and over who go on online dating sites get scammed. You see grandparent scams where somebody calls and says, hey, it's your grandson, I'm overseas, wire me some money. And then you have government scams. And that's kind of the biggest area where the most common scamming takes place. People claiming to be Social Security, people claiming to be the IRS, and particularly this year, people claiming to be the U.S. Census Bureau.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked a little bit about the IRS and Social Security earlier in the show, as those seem to be the most common. But what are you seeing today with investment scams? When we think of investment scams, we always think of Bernie Madoff, right? Because that was one of the biggest. But those come up on a much more frequent basis. And I hate to say it because I live down here in Florida also, but Florida seems to be the hotbed of those. So can you give our viewers an idea of roughly how often you see an investment scam come on your radar somewhere here in our beloved state?
It's really common. So if you go to AARP's website, we have one specifically set up for fraud called the Fraud Watch Network. It's aarp.org/Fraud Watch Network. And you can see in real time how people are reporting scams. Investment scams are a huge one. You see it particularly in Southeast Florida, down where you are, quite frankly. But you also see it all around the state. And some of that has to do with the demographics of our population. We have a lot of people who retired down here. So people who are older, but also people who the scammers know have resources that are worth trying to swindle away. I got to tell you, I think that one of the things that I would say for your audience in particular is that we have a model in mind of the victim as somebody who's probably the little old lady, the proverbial little old lady who's alone in her home and easily duped. We did some work a few years ago with FINRA who said, while that may be true for some, there are a lot of guys like you and me, 40s, 50s, 60s, feel like we have an idea of what a smart investment is, who get scammed on a regular basis because we're a little too confident in our own abilities and we don't do the due diligence to make sure that who we're dealing with is on the up and up.
True. And men specifically make themselves targets because of that extra macho confidence. Okay, what are some of the rules of thumb? What are some of the things that you tell people to do to protect themselves from letting that scammer into your life?
I would say a couple of things. First of all, always be wary of somebody who cold calls you, of the letter in the mail that looks super official but doesn't actually have a return address on it, of the phone call that comes through the door that claims to be somebody that you're not sure about, even of email that may look like it's from your bank. Usually those unsolicited things are efforts to try to get your personal information, whether it be your identity, like your Social Security number, or your bank account information so that they can go straight to your finances. And in all of those cases, it just makes sense to say, I'll call you back. I'll contact you back. I'll look up the information on my bank's card or on my credit card. I'll look up your information online and then I'll get back to you, because then you put in your own hands the ability to check out whether somebody is who they say they are.
So if you were scammed or you're the potential victim of a scam, but maybe you stopped it in time, 45 seconds, How do you fight back against these situations? What do you tell people?
Best thing you can do is to call the AARP Fraud Watch Network. It's 877-908-3360. It helps us record where the big scams are, and it also helps us educate others, because most of us, if we have heard of a scam somewhere else, we are far less likely to fall for that same scam. So you can really help your fellow citizens by raising the alarm and letting other people know what somebody tried to do to you.
Give us that phone number one more time, please.
It's 877-908-3360.
Good advice. Great advice, Jeff. Thanks so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me.
And you stay with us too. We'll be back here in a moment. Coming up on the Income Generation. We'll be right back.